All right. Hello, Nolan, and welcome to the Leading Edge Financial Planning YouTube channel, right?
That's right. I didn't know how you were going to intro us there, but I like it.
We have a YouTube channel, so we wanted to share something important and we think useful. This will be Southwest Airlines specific for those pilots that are on disability. And, disability benefits have changed at Southwest with the last contract, now a couple of years old, actually, Nolan.
Yeah, hard
But
to believe.
they also changed again, or I should say some IRS rules changed this year, 2026, that even change a couple things if you're on disability, things that you should think about. In fact, right now, Nolan, when any of our pilot clients go on disability, you and I, boom, we immediately think of three or four things that we think are opportunities as far as the savings component of this and maximizing that when you're on disability.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Nolan, so you're going to show us today a case study that you and I were talking about. And just as you were talking and going through it, you and I were reviewing together. I was like, man, this is amazing, Nolan, because you kind of showed me like this family, they're going to end up saving more on, if they're out the whole year, they're going to end up saving more on disability than they possibly would have working. And there's three or four things we'll go over. I'll say three things with maybe a bonus in there. One of them is what kind of 401k contribution can you have if you're on disability? Right to the point, Nolan. Some people are able to do this. You could do 80%, and that means 80% of your sick time, vacation pay. That pay can still go into the 401k. And
Yeah.
so the case study you're going to show us is it's May. They've been on disability. They've already maxed out their 401k at 32,500. That's incredible.
It is.
The second point here that we'll show is all of that's Roth, which is phenomenal because the taxable income, if you're on tax-free loss of license, is much, much lower. It's lower than a brand new FO, Nolan. The
Yep.
taxable income.
Right.
Phenomenal. So now 22% marginal tax bracket. So now it makes sense to let's shove as much Roth in there as we can.
Exactly.
And those are the three, 80% 401k contribution if possible.
Mhm.
Think Roth contribution because your tax rate's lower. And the third is you could save just as much on disability as you did working. And
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah. And if not more, right? Because in this case, it all has to do with if someone is on non-taxable loss of license, then that means your NEC is going to come to you as taxable income, which
Yeah.
we recommend our clients saving that in their brokerage account. And
Yeah.
so you're no longer bound to those IRS limits. So this example we're about to show, this couple's actually going to be saving more
Yeah.
on disability than they would have been able to with just the 401k
Yeah.
limits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you nailed it with that NEC. And the tax rule is that if you selected tax-free loss of license, in other words, when you receive that benefit, it's tax-free. The NEC, Southwest is still going to give you the NEC, but because your loss of license is tax-free, it cannot go into the NEC on the loss of license cannot go into the 401k. It must come to you in your paycheck and it will be taxable. But that's okay. You're going to pay tax on that amount. We've seen about 5 or 6 thousand a month. And then by the time you get it, let's say it's 1,000 less due to taxes, put that in a brokerage account. So that you got to be willing to do that as well, right? And it's
That's
tempting to
right.
live on that maybe a little bit. Maybe you need to. That's fine too. But here's an opportunity. So let's jump in, Nolan. Share
Yeah.
it with us. We've sanitized for privacy the names and things like that, but we'll go through here as best we can and
Yeah.
talk to it. What are your
So
observations first?
yeah, so we tried to highlight the things that obviously is, our Southwest pilots know lot to unpack on the pay stub here, but tried to highlight the things applicable to this disability scenario. All right, so as Charlie mentioned, this person has non-taxable loss of license, and so this is their amount of non-taxable loss of license they're getting each paycheck. And along with that, since it's non-taxable loss of license, again, it cannot go into the 401k, the NEC portion at
Mhm.
least the 18% of that amount cannot go into the 401k. And so this is where the 5,908 is coming to this Southwest pilot in their paycheck. And then as Charlie mentioned, we recommend saving that for retirement because that's what would usually happen with the NEC anyways. And so you can see the year-to-date amount there as well. And then the part that makes this so interesting, Charlie, again, as you mentioned, is that TFP can still be dropped while on disability. So there's one sick TFP. This person also had some vacation TFP. So you can see the year-to-date amounts over here on the right. It's added up. If you added these three, it's a little over 60,000. It adds up over the year, right? And so where that comes into play is that the TFP that's dropped per month counts as active income. And that's why the NEC for that will actually go into the 401k. And so we'll take a look down here that the pilot NEC, not only again are they getting that 5,900 in the paycheck, on top of that, since they've dropped TFP, they've received 10,500 or so year to date in the 401k. And how we got that is again, you add these three numbers here of the TFP year to date, that's 60,000 about times 18%. It's about 10,500 for the year. Yeah. And then Charlie, before I pass it over to you, as you mentioned, the Roth is what's so awesome about this is that the two new rules, right, that came into play this year was that the age 50 or over catch up has to be Roth. And then Southwest, a pilot can choose to defer 80% of their income to the 401k. And so that when we first heard that, I was like, who's going to do that, right? Well, this would be the case study for that, right? But it doesn't impact this person's still getting the 16,412 loss of license. So all of this stuff over here is kind of icing on the cake, if you will. And so they're taking 80% of the TFP pay and putting that towards the 401k. And that's over here on the right. So they've already in April maxed out their 24,500 and put 8,000 in of catch up. So there's 32,500 that they've put in to the 401k. But what are your thoughts on that, Troy? Anything you'd add? Anything I missed?
Man, you nailed it. And this pay stub can be very confusing. So I'll just point out, really quickly that the MBE deemed compensation non-tax pilot there, that 32,824 in the pay stub right below your highlighted vacation. Yeah, that part, that is that's essentially the look back, average, this pilot's average monthly income. And that's what the 18% NEC is based off of. So 18% of 32,824 is 5,908.32. And so this, just to clarify a little bit of what's going on here on this pay stub, I think that could help a little bit. But no, this is phenomenal. And I think a little bit of the catch, maybe that's not the right word, is that this Southwest family is willing to save that 5,908. Of course, it's not quite 5,908. It's going to be taxed. They're going to have 5,000 or so left, but they're willing to save that. And it's April, and you nailed it. They cash in some vacation, a little bit of sick time, and boom, they're already at their 32,500 maximum for the 401k, all Roth. Phenomenal. And Nolan, there's a bonus here that, most of us, if we're on disability, we don't know how long we're going to be on disability, right? There's some things we just don't know, the uncertainty there. So, however, in a perfect world, if we knew we were going to be on disability for this whole year, we could even turn on the Roth NEC, right, Nolan?
That's right. Yeah. So you nailed it. You would want to make sure that if you knew somehow that the rest of the year that you would be on disability, then that means a whole year's worth of pay that Charlie mentioned is probably lower than an FO's pay, right? So you may be in the 22%, 24% tax bracket, which we view as pretty ideal to convert money over to Roth. And so you would go into Schwab Workplace. There's a Roth NEC election where, again, that's this money right here. And if you switch that on, that would be converting this money. So when you drop TFP each month, and that counts towards NEC for the 401k, it would convert that money to Roth. And the catch there, Charlie, is that our pilots need to know they are the ones withholding tax
Yeah.
on that amount. So it's not like when you do your employee Roth deferral
Mhm.
and Southwest will withhold tax on the Roth contribution. When it's the NEC, you actually have to be the one to say, hey, here's what the estimated tax would be on that, and then save that in your bank account. Make sure you have that because that could be a nasty tax surprise
Yeah.
if not.
Yeah. And you might even consider making, consult with your tax person. If that's us, give us a call. But
Yeah.
anyway, so you might even consider estimated tax payments
Yeah.
or withholding more than you have to from your Southwest paycheck. Because if there's a rule called safe harbor. If you don't withhold enough, there could be some penalties on not withholding enough. Because essentially, let's pretend that there's $47,500 of NEC, which you may not get if you're on disability. Then that's essentially $47,500 more income, and there's no withholding with that, so that could cause some issues. So, but you made a great point there. Think about that before you turn that switch on. But
Charlie, I love how you stressed a few times. This example is a really prime example of a couple that they're great savers, and they've taken a situation where they that it may not be viewed as a good situation, and they've turned it into something where they're actually going to save more on disability. But you nailed it. That if I think that it may go back to a larger disability discussion that if when you look at, and we help our clients with this, right? If you went out on disability, what would your loss of license be?
yeah,
If you're not comfortable living on that number, then they wouldn't be able to save all of it, right? They wouldn't be
right,
saving this 5,908 that or
yeah,
they're saving to the brokerage. They would be spending that. And then that could potentially, get you behind on retirement. But this is actually is getting them ahead. So I think just larger picture here, knowing what that loss of license number would be and asking yourself, can we live on that is probably the big takeaway here too.
yeah, absolutely. I love it, Nolan. We've got calculators that can help that model those scenarios if you were to become disabled. How do all your disability benefits work together? Because we're not even seeing here long-term disability that's also not taxable, so they're not going to show up on a pay stub because it's coming from MetLife in this scenario. So
Yeah.
but we can model those how they fit together. How does your sick time play into this equation? Vacation. So if you want to know those things, we're happy to help. You can reach out to us, Nolan at leadingedgeplanning.com, Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have as well. So Nolan, any parting shots?
No parting shots.
Okay.
Good stuff. Thanks for
Yep.
going
It's
over it.
pretty amazing when you showed me this or saving more than they would have. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And of course, there's some spill cash nuances in there that could allow someone not on disability to save a lot more too. But nonetheless, that's another video, another time. So
Right.
thanks for sharing, Nolan. We appreciate it. Again, share this video if you think it's useful, valuable. Contact us. We're happy to help with any projections that you might have as well. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.